anyways, I work on the Center for Enterprise Dissemination. So we are the area that does data.census.gov, the API, as well as the microdata access tool on data.census.gov. So my area of specialty is mainly helping folks access the different ways of getting to Census Bureau data. Prior to working on this team, I did spend about 3 years in the American Community Survey Office doing outreach and education for data users. So those are my areas of expertise. Today, we are, of course, focusing on data.census.gov, and I'm just going to give a very brief introduction in case you guys are new to the site. And then really we wanted to focus on live demonstration and hands-on exercises. We're going to touch on 5 different sections. So what I'm going to do is demo the site and then provide an opportunity for you all to go through and work with the site on your own for predefined exercises. And then we'll come back as a group after about 5 to 10 minutes and we'll work through it. During that time, we'll also have the chat going, so I'll be able to answer any questions if you're stuck on a particular step and don't want to wait until we regroup. We can certainly provide assistance during that time as well. What we're going to make sure that you are comfortable leaving with today is using the single search bar, the advanced search filtering experience to get to more detailed topics and geographies. We'll also show how you can look up the geographies associated with an address, customize your table view, and map data on the site. Some new features for download, export, and print. And then if there's time at the end, we'll also go through race and ethnicity searches. There's a lot of different ways you can slice and dice race and ethnicity data from the Census Bureau and different ways that you would go about searching that. And then with that, we'll just wrap up with some common questions. We'll talk about some updates that we've had over the past year since we presented to you all the last time, and then open it up for another Q&A period, but we'll certainly have opportunity for questions and answers ongoing through the chat, and particularly during the hands-on exercises. So let's go ahead and get started with the overview of data.census.gov. We are the official way to access data from the Census Bureau and launched about a year ago as the primary access point for data releases from the American Community Survey with the decommissioning of the previous site, American Fact Finder. The reason for this change is to centralize the way that we provide data from the Census Bureau. And you can see on the left-hand side, what that is showing is that the API, or Application Programming Interface, is really at the heart of everything that we're doing. All that means is that as you navigate through data.census.gov, all of your charts, maps, and tables are being pulled in real time from the API and fed on your screen in a very nice user display. In terms of what data is on our site, we're still working with the American Community Survey from 2010 to 2019, the decennial census from 2000 and 2010. We have made quite a bit of progress over the past year with the migration of the decennial census data, with the bulk of that already being migrated from both of those years. And then for economic census and selected surveys from the economic program areas, things like county business patterns, annual business survey, those data are available from 2012 through the present. That's just kind of a high level look. If you'd like the more detailed listing, you can visit the link at the bottom of this slide, and it will take you to a detailed chart that you can see some of the screenshots here that walk through all of the surveys and programs that are available on the site, as well as the different data sets or types of tables and the specific status for each of those. In terms of geography, I'm sure you all are well aware, the Census Bureau provides data for a wide variety of different geographies. This is just a chart that shows some of the more common types of geographies, as well as the hierarchy of them. So this just tells you when you see a lower level geography, connected by a direct line to a higher level geography, that means it nests neatly within that geography. So for an example, places nest neatly within states. That means they won't ever cross state boundaries, but since there is no line between places and things like congressional district or zip code tabulation area or census tracts, that means that they don't necessarily have any relationship with those types of geographies. Today, we're going to be focusing primarily on examples from the American Community Survey and Decennial Census, of course, the ACS going down to the block group level, and the decennial census going down to census blocks. And then we're going to focus on more local geographies in the DC area. So let's go ahead and get started into the live demonstration and hands-on exercises. First, we're going to walk through one specific functionality on the site, and that's the single search bar. Just before we go in, the purpose of single search are just to get your quick win. So if you want a simple statistic, something like percent health insurance in Arizona, that would be a good use case for the single search bar. A geography profile will show you that. So you can also type in a particular NAICS code, table ID, or table prefix in order to pull up a specific grouping of tables. So it kind of works well if you just want basic statistics and high-level information, or if you have those specific types of codes like table IDs and you're an advanced user and know what you're looking for. Both are great use cases for that single search bar. As we're working through this first exercise, there are a few different ways that you can clear out your search and start fresh. You can always type data.census.gov back into the URL, which will take you to the landing page. My favorite method generally is to click the US Census logo in the upper left, and then you can also click into the search bar and just simply type in a new search. So let's go ahead and go to the live demonstration. Just going to walk through a few different options that you can use for that search bar, starting with, you want that high level look to get started with Census Bureau data. We'll pull up geography profile as well as data profiles from the American Community Survey for Washington, DC. And then we'll run through just a couple other examples, searching by topic in geography, table ID, and a couple of other search options. So moving to the live site, we do recommend using Google Chrome. It's the preferred browser, so that just means it's going to give you the best speed and performance with the least number of issues. And you'll just go to data.census.gov. And on our landing page here, you'll see there's the single search bar, which is what we're going to focus on right now, as well as an advanced search filtering experience. To get started, I'm going to pull up the geography profile for Washington, DC. You can just type in your geography into the single search bar and press enter. So I type in DC and enter. And then this takes you to our all results page. Depending on your search, you may see a featured statistic at the top of the page. And as you scroll through, you'll get a few table recommendations and a link to view all tables, as well as the corresponding maps with the link to all maps, and then the web pages. So these are links to census.gov, things like special reports, technical documentation, and methodology information. What I wanted to show to start is that geography profile. So when you type a single geography and get to the all results page, you may need to adjust your zoom level, but you will be able to see a blue box on the right. So I'm going to click District of Columbia profile. It will start to zoom us into a map of the area, provide the 4 most popular statistics from the Census Bureau right on top: population, median income, poverty, and bachelor's degree or higher. And as you scroll through, you'll get high-level information on the left, things like median age for the District of Columbia, versus median age for the United States, and more detailed information on the right-hand side with very easy to digest bar charts, line charts, and maps. And then when you see something of interest, you can click on the left or simply keep scrolling through the page. I'm going to go ahead and click on business and economy to start. Notice the data that we had looked at comes from a variety of surveys and programs, and pulling it from the API is a unique feature of data.census.gov that wasn't available in the previous ways of showing data. With the prior site on American Fact Finder, everything was table based. With pulling it in the API, we can pull different surveys and programs in a single view. So you have county business patterns as an example for a couple of your statistics. And then when you go to the next section, such as employment, give it just a moment to load, we can see that this particular statistics are being sourced from the American Community Survey. The other nice thing about these geography profiles, beyond just getting a breadth of information from across the Bureau, you can click on the particular table link. So if you're interested in seeing, okay, we know employment rate is higher in the District of Columbia compared to the United States, what other information may we have on employment? You can click on DP03. And it's going to take you to that table view. So from here, you can get more information about labor force status right at the top of the table, looking at it across different categories. You can look at females in this particular table and different ways of family and living arrangement for labor force data. And then the nice thing is that this is data profile from the American Community Survey. You can just simply scroll and they cover a variety of topics, all related to economic characteristics. So we can see commuting to work, occupation, industry, passive worker, income, poverty, health insurance. I'm not going to scroll through the whole table, but it's really nice to have these data profiles from the American Community Survey. I actually want to take a moment to explore these a little bit further and show another way that you can go about accessing them. That's just to simply type in the single search bar the table prefix, which I recommend using DP and 0. We can just keep that geography selection and press enter. So you can type in a table prefix on our site. So that just means it will pull up all of the options for table IDs that begin with DP0 from the American Community Survey. There are 4. And what I love about these data profiles is it's really a one-stop shop into getting the breadth of information from the American Community Survey. It gives you the most popular statistics across all of the 40+ topics that are covered through the ACS, and it gives you the estimates as well as the percentages. So I'm just going to click in a second one just to show you another example, selected housing characteristics. And here you can see more data, housing occupancy, units in structure, the year the structure was built, how many rooms and bedrooms do people own or rent their homes, and much more information as you scroll through these. Moving on to another example of using the single search bar, I'm going to click the US Census logo in the upper left to take us back to the landing page, and we'll type in an example of a topic and a geography, veterans in Maryland. Press enter. And you see your result. Right at the top, you can see approximately 7.5% of the population in Maryland are veterans. And if you'd like to explore this in further detail, you can simply click the tables in the upper left and see that there are 67 different table results. To scroll through, you can click on the left-hand side between the different table titles and see the information that that table offers on the right. It's a little bit of an improvement in terms of the prior site being able to really have a click and be able to preview the information. And then if you want to deep dive into the full table view, you'll see that customize table button in the upper right. So you get a little more information at your fingertips to go off of before you kind of fully commit to looking at that full table view. Another option that you can search, not only can you do a table prefix, but of course you could type in a specific table ID. Here I'm going to type in S2401 in Prince George's County, Maryland, and press enter. And as you would expect, it would take you to that specific table ID you requested. Here we're looking at an example of occupation data. And this gives us pretty detailed occupations for this level of geography. You can scroll through the different table title and see the estimate as well as the margin of error. The single search bar also works well for particular types of searches, keywords that may be useful. For occupation data, most of that data is based on where people live, unless it says place of work. So if you wanted to get occupation data based on where people work, rather than where they live, you could type in that keyword, place of work, and press enter. And here you would get data primarily for tables that are based on the workplace geography. You'll notice in the table title, it says workplace geography or place of work. So just kind of another way of slicing and dicing occupation data and pointing out that there may be particular keywords that actually may work better for you or can narrow your results a little bit more fine-tuned than you could through the advanced search filters. And lastly, what I wanted to showcase here for the single search is pulling up data for a specific NAICS code. You can certainly type that into the single search bar. Here I'm going to type in 622 and press enter. And we can look at data for that particular NAICS code. That's the one that corresponds to hospitals. You'll see you'll get data from a variety of economic surveys and programs, in this case, starting with business dynamics statistics. But as you scroll through, you'll see things like county business patterns, the economic census, and more. So we're going to transition here over to the back to the slide deck here. Just one moment, though. I did think I see a chat question come up. Can you type in the single search geographies like all block groups in a geography? So as an example, all block groups in a state or all block groups in Washington, D.C. You can search for collections of geographies in the single search. You're actually going to get a chance to practice this in the upcoming exercise. However, the more complex types of geographies are not supported in the single search. So as an example, block groups, census tracts, metropolitan statistical areas, those are all examples of geographies that you cannot use the single search bar to pull up, but you could use the single search bar for more common types of geographies, things like state, place, county, zip code tabulation area, and a few more. And we, of course, continue to work on expanding the functionality of the single search. Part of the complexity of the single search bar is it's just one search bar. So the way it is, the system already has to parse out what it means, what it thinks you're trying to mean as you type something in. For example, if you type the word in, do you mean the state abbreviation Indiana? Are you talking about veterans in Maryland? So it definitely adds to the complexity, and it's something that we're still working to fine tune and make improvements to. So let's go ahead and walk through the exercise number 1. We'll give you all about 5 minutes or so to walk through these examples, do what you can, and we'll come back as a group. So use that single search bar to find the following 5 sets of information: commuting in Virginia, a table from the county business patterns, all available tables for NAICS 4231, And as related to the question that was just asked, table B19013 for all counties in Virginia, and then the geography profile for Arlington County. So I'm going to leave this screen up for you all to work through these exercises, and we'll touch base in about 5 minutes or so. If you have any questions as you go through, feel free to type them in the chat, and I'll be on the lookout for those. All right, so it's been about 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and start working through some of these. So if you haven't got a chance to get through them all, we'll definitely work through them together, and then we can go through the ones that you have already completed. So let me get out of the PowerPoint view. Before we do that, actually, these were generally the answers that you should have found. I'll give you all just a moment to kind of glance this over at a quick look, and then we'll go to the live site. Okay, so moving on to the live site, the first was to look at commuting in Virginia, and hopefully you found that it takes 29.1 minutes is the average travel time to work. So what you would do, pretty straightforward, type in the single search bar, commuting Virginia. And then press enter. And are you all okay? So commuting in Virginia, press enter. And then right at the top of the screen, you will see the 29.1 minutes as the average travel time to work in Virginia based on the 2019 American Community Survey 1-year estimates. You could have also clicked into tables in the upper left and then explore the full range of commuting data from the Census Bureau. The second task was to find a table from county business patterns. Pretty straightforward. You can type in the table ID, CB 1800 CBP, and press enter. Then you can click on the table title or click tables in the upper left. And then you'll be able to see the information for this table. So this looks at, because we didn't specify a NAICS code, it starts with the total for all sectors and then looks at different legal forms of organization code, whether it's all establishments, nonprofits, partnerships, employment size. And then for each of those categories, different ways of slicing and dicing the information, you can see the total number of establishments, annual payroll, and number of employees as some example. The next task was to find data for NAICS code 4231. You can type that into the single search bar and press enter and click tables in the upper left. And then you'll see 131 results for this particular NAICS code, looking at, in this particular case, motor vehicle and motor parts and supply merchant wholesalers. Next was to find table ID B19013. So I'm going to click into the single search bar and type over top B19013. All counties in Virginia. There were a couple different ways you could go about doing it. You can type all counties in Virginia in the single search bar and press enter. And then you'll see in this particular case, median household income for the different counties. One thing that you do want to pay attention to is the product drop-down menu at the top of the table, making sure that it is directing you to the ACS 5-year estimates detailed tables when appropriate, rather than the ACS 1-year estimates, which would only give you data for counties with 65,000 people or more. We have done a lot of enhancements to the default for the system, so it should be giving you the 5-year estimates in cases where you would expect it, generally speaking, but it is something that we continue to just remind users to be keeping their eye on as you work through the site. And then the last, actually, before we go on, I wanted to show just another way that you could go about finding this is using the advanced search. I'm going to click the US Census logo and click the advanced search. We haven't really fully explored this yet, but this will be a preview into what we're going to cover in just a moment. You can type your table ID in the first text box under the advanced search heading, and then you could have selected your just following through the prompts. We'll talk about this in more detail later, but in case you went through this exercise, some of you may have selected your geography this way and then ran your search. And you'd be able to access the same thing that we pulled up just by typing V19013, all counties in Virginia, just requiring a little bit more steps. And then the last thing was that geography profile. We'll click the US Census logo in the upper left and type in Arlington County, comma, VA. Press enter. Click the blue box on the right-hand side. And then we have our geography profile. We walked through earlier kind of the different sections of this for DC, but you could explore this for a variety of geographies. Now I'm going to take a moment to go through some of the questions that we received through the chat. One question that was sent directly to me was about downloading data across multiple years in one table. We haven't talked about download yet, but I did just want to point out, because we did talk about the data profiles. They start with DP0. They provide information across a variety of topics in the ACS in just 4 tables, but it does provide a single year at a time. If you wanted this data over time, it would mean going through separate tables, either by viewing it in the product drop-down menu or downloading it for all of the different vintages. There is one type of table from the American Community Survey that provides information over time in a single view. That is really the sister product for the data profiles, the comparison profiles. They begin with CP0, and when you press enter, you will see almost the exact same information that we saw on the data profiles. However, you just get percentages instead of the estimates and the percentages, and it will provide this information up to 5 years over time. So you'll see the 2019 estimate in the first column, then the 2018 estimate. And as you scroll through the table, it goes all the way back to 2015. In this example, this type of table also does some adjustments. So all dollar values have been adjusted for inflation. And then you will see statistical significance indicated. So what this tells you, if you look at the population under 5 years old, it was 6.3% in 2015 for this geography. Right now, the latest 2019 estimate, it's 5.8%. And because you see that asterisk indicated, this tells you that the population under 5 years old has decreased from 6.3% to 5.8% over that time period. And that decrease that you see is statistically significant. Other questions through the chat? Let's see. Just kind of reading here. One question about training opportunities. I'm not sure if this was a question for COG or for Census Bureau, but if it was for us, what I will say is on census.gov, the best way to access training opportunities from the Census Bureau is to just go to our main site under Explore Data and then Training and Workshops. This will take you to Census Academy, which directs you to training opportunities from across the Census Bureau, not necessarily just related to data.census.gov. There is an upcoming webinars section, and that's a great way to stay tuned to our training opportunities that are available. Another question, how do you get shape files? Those are not available on data.census.gov, so you would want to use our geography resource page. I'm going to showcase some of our FAQs and walk through some of the common questions at the end. I didn't pull this one in particular, but when you go to ask.census.gov, there is a data.census.gov section. And under how to use the site, there's an FAQ on how can I download shapefiles. So if you wanted the step-by-step information on how to get the shapefiles, again, it wouldn't be directly on data.census.gov. It's a functionality that we're considering working towards in the future. But this shows you how you can download it in the meantime. And I'm seeing quite a few questions. I'm going to take these other two questions that came through, and then we're going to go ahead and go through the advanced search. So I see one question about not seeing the map for Arlington County using Chrome, but that they did see it using Edge. I didn't experience that on my side, so I don't know. That would be a good example of something that if you have any kind of bugs or things that you see on the site, you can send those to sedsi.feedback@census.gov, and any screenshots and browser versions helps us kind of get to the bottom of that. And then another question coming through, Census Bureau timeline for adding additional tables to data.census.gov, such as the population estimates program. I just want to take one moment here to show that we are on the very early stages of adding this. So what this means is under surveys and scrolling to the bottom of the list, population estimates program, we do have one particular table already on the population estimates program. It's really just the very basics of total population, and they provide their data from the 2010 all the way through the 2019, and you can get this table for different geography vintages. So the technical requirements to get the population estimates tables, because of the format of tables and way they deliver their data, is unique compared to the way that other surveys and programs deliver their data. We've been working with them over the past few years to make sure we have their requirements to get those data tables added, and we have made some progress. You can see that first table here, and we're working towards getting future releases added for population estimates, and then of course migrating the old data. So I don't have a specific timeline, but in comparison to what we showed you all last year when there was no information on the site, we have made some strides that you can see here. Okay, so moving on to the advanced search, I'm going to take a moment to walk through features of the advanced search. Most of you have probably used it already. You'll just look for that advanced search link under the single search bar, and you want to use the advanced search for more complex types of searches. If you want to specify a particular survey program or type of table, like the ACS 5-year detailed tables, that's a great use case for using the advanced search. More complex types of geographies, such as block groups, and census tracts. Collections of geographies, we typed all counties in Virginia into the single search bar in the last exercise, but you do have to kind of be careful on the wording. So some folks may just find it easier to select those collections of geographies by clicking the checkbox in the advanced search filter. Cross tabulations, when you want to select multiple topics, we recommend the advanced search for that. And then of course, detailed population groups. We hope to get to that example at the end. I'm going to go ahead and run through a demonstration showing a couple different ways that you can use the advanced search. We're going to pull up, based on the 2017 American Community Survey data profiles, what is the median household income in Fairfax City, Fairfax County, and zip code tabulation area 22030. And we already have this pulled up, so I'm just going to click the US Census logo in the upper left and click on the advanced search. As you work through the advanced search, generally I use the first free-form text box at the top to type in table IDs, or the filters on the left-hand side. When you use these filters, you are looking for a checkbox as a final selection. Any words and phrases without a checkbox give you more detailed options on the right to choose from. We'll go ahead and start with our geography. Really, you can start with whatever's most important to you. So when you click on geography, we wanted the county, Fairfax. So I see county right at the top. We'll click county. And then you just follow the prompts, clicking on Virginia. And now I see checkboxes. So this tells me these are final selections. We'll click Fairfax County, Virginia. Virginia is a little bit unique in that some of the cities are also county equivalent. So I can go ahead and select Fairfax City through county. I can also select Fairfax City through the place level geography. Here is the link for place. If we wanted to drill down that pathway, I've already made my selection. So I'm going to skip selecting Fairfax City through place since I already have that geography. And I'm just going to look for zip code tabulation area. So we see zip code tabulation area, 5-digit. Follow the prompt by clicking on Virginia. And then we get a list of the different zip code areas in Virginia. I wanted 22030. And scrolling through, we see ZICTA 522030. Check the box and make sure it's been added to the bottom of my screen as a selected filter. So I have the 3 geographies, and I wanted income data from the 2017 American Community Survey data profiles. So we'll go ahead and select years, 2017. Then I'll choose surveys. There are many times when you'll want to narrow your results by survey and program. This is a pretty detailed listing of the surveys and types of tables and data sets. So you'll want to pay attention to the first 3 characters. Here we see at the top of our list, it starts with ACS for American Community Survey. And I want the data profiles. I'll choose the ACS 1-year estimates data profiles. And then I'm just going to scroll through the list. I know things are grayed out here because of the other selections I've already made. But other characters you will see are ANN. That is for our annual economic surveys and programs. And then you'll see DEC for decennial census. In terms of upcoming releases for the decennial census that you may be interested in, some of the popular ones are the redistricting data set, as well as summary file 1. So if you wanted to limit your results based on those surveys and programs, you would look for those options here. And then you'll see ECN for economic census and a few others as you scroll through. And then the last thing I'll select is income. So under topics, income and poverty, income and earnings, and income, households, families, individuals. You may see a few different options that you think are relevant. Choose one, making your best guess, and if you're not getting expected results, go back in and switch it out for a different topic. Once we're happy with our selections, we have our 3 geographies, our year, type of survey and program, and the income topic. We'll click search in the lower right, and tables in the upper left. And now we see data profile 3, selected economic characteristics. I'm going to click on customize table just so I can see this across my full screen. And I'm going to take a moment to show you some functionality here to hide columns that you're not interested in. Maybe you don't want to look at the margin of error right now. You can click that. And I should be seeing data for all of my geographies. I'm not sure why I'm just seeing data for one. Oh, that was because I had selected the 1 year when I should have selected the 5 year. So let me actually go back and actually just to show you how you can go through and navigate to the site. If you do make a selection and you want to go back and change it, you can click into the single search bar I did this a little quickly, and then go to Advanced Search. And here you can click the X next to filters you want to remove. Here I want to remove ACS 1 year. And then notice as soon as I remove that, it let me have more clickable options here in the survey panel. And I actually wanted to look for ACS 5-year data profiles. So we check that box, we run our search, go back through the steps that we just looked at earlier. And now as we go through, we can see we have data for all 3 of our geographies. So here we can click the margin of error. We can click the hide button. If we wanted to look at household income and we don't want to see the percents, we can uncheck those boxes. And now we can just scroll through the table looking for the section of the table for income. I see income and benefits, detailed breakouts, and median household income. You can compare that particular value across our 3 geographies here. So now let's give you all a chance to work with the advanced search. There are 2 exercises for this example. First is, what is median home value in 2019 for people living in Maryland, City of Rockville, Montgomery County, and the Washington, D.C. metro area. And then the second example, using data from the 2010 decennial census redistricting data set, EL 94-171, what is the total population for these 3 counties in Maryland? So we'll give you all some time to work through this, probably about 7 to 10 minutes. And then if you have questions as you go along, feel free to throw those into the chat. And then we'll regroup and work through this. All right, so we'll take about just one more minute or two, and then we'll start working through these. Right. Let's start putting some of the answers that you may have gotten as you work through these on the screen. We'll go ahead and start working through the first example. What is median home value in 2019 for people living in these 4 geographies? Let's go ahead and navigate to the live site here. In Chrome, I'll click the US Census logo in the upper left so we can start fresh. Then I will click on the advanced search. You want to start out with whatever's most important to you. In a lot of cases, I like to start with the geography. It just loads a little faster on screen when you click the geography first. So we're going to click Geography State, Maryland. Then we'll choose County, follow the prompt for Montgomery County, or for Maryland, and then to Montgomery County. And then here I just need to scroll down a little bit until I see the horizontal scroll bar to move me back to the geography area of the navigation I want to be. So I want to go from county now to place. So we scroll through, click on place, choose Maryland, and then we'll look for Rockville. So I can scroll through this list. It gives me the first 100 cities and towns in Maryland. And then when I get to the bottom of the list, it loads the next set of 100. But you can also click on the spyglass in the upper right and then start typing in Rockville. So we'll choose, started to come up. It does look for an exact text match when you're searching within an individual geography panel. So you want to be careful of your spelling in these search boxes on the site. And then the last thing was selecting the DC metro area. Just scrolling down, we'll see metropolitan statistical area, micropolitan statistical area. And then in this case, we'll also want to be sure to use the spyglass just to help us navigate through this a little more quickly. Starting to type in Washington, I see Washington, Arlington, Alexandria metro area. We'll click the box. And then now we'll go ahead and choose our next topic. We'll choose topic. We wanted housing. And we're looking for home value. I see some options here. Some are checkboxes, which are final selections. And I see something that says financial characteristics. It doesn't have a checkbox, so that tells me when I click on it, gives me more detailed options to the right. And now I see something that I'm looking for, housing value and purchase price. So here I click the boxes. I can verify my filters at the bottom of the screen. I have all 4 geographies in housing value and purchase price. I'll click search in the lower right and tables in the upper left. Now there's probably a few tables that provide median home value. I just scroll through here to glance quickly. I can see, I believe it's the 5th or 6th result that says median value, dollars. And I can see that the universe is owner-occupied housing units. It's giving me median home value, and I can compare across these for geographies just by going through the table. And actually, I am clicked into, you always want to pay attention to the product drop-down menu. I actually want to update that to 2019. It almost always gives the 2019 data by default. There are some known defects with the tags for the housing related topics. And I know there are several folks on the call that are interested in housing data. So that is something to be mindful of. When you're using those tags, you may notice some inconsistencies, but generally you'd just be able to specify whatever topic you wanted. It would default you to the most recent data. Here you just want to take a look at the product drop-down menu, or you could have also selected the year 2019 on the previous screen. So here we get the correct updated housing median values. Moving on to the second example, I'll click the US Census logo in the upper left. We wanted to find total population for 3 counties in Maryland from the 2010 decennial census redistricting data. You'll click on advanced search to get started. And then I'm going to choose my geography first. For geography, county, Anne Arundel County, Charles County, and Prince George's County. So you can compare and look at data in the same geographic level for multiple geographies in a table, as in this example, or across different types of geographies like we just did. And then we wanted the redistricting data set. So we'll click on surveys. We'll look for DEC for decennial census. These are sorted alphabetically by the first 3 characters. So once we see DEC, we'll see that there are some options here for us to choose. There are about 30 from the decennial census. So you'll see redistricting data PL 94-171. That is going to be the first data that we'll be releasing from the 2020 census on data.census.gov. So just kind of wanted to give you all an example on how you might narrow your results to select this particular data set with the anticipation of being able to access this by the end of September. So we'll click on search in the lower right and tables in the upper left. In here, you'll get the most recent available data first. Here we're seeing 2010. Once we release this data from the 2020 census, you'll see those results at the top of your list. And there's just a few tables to search through, 9 different results with some of the table titles from the 2000 census towards the bottom of your list. Because it's such a limited data set, you don't really need to specify a topic like total population. You can just kind of browse through these results, click on the table titles and wait for it to load on screen. I see something for race, which should add up to the total population. So we'll give it just a moment to load up. We can see the universe's total population. The very first line gives us total, and then it starts breaking it out by race. So I can see from this particular table, the total population across these 3 geographies. Now I'm going to take a moment here to look through some of the questions that came in. Add just a couple. 1, can you type more than 1 table into the advanced search? That's a great question. The answer to that question is yes, you absolutely can. So if you wanted to type in DP02, DP03, you can go ahead and type that into the advanced search and run your search, and you will get results for those 2 tables that you specified. Another trick that may help you if you access a certain set of tables regularly is to go ahead and type that into the advanced search. Then you can copy the URL in the advanced search page from your address bar. And if you wanted to share it with colleagues or access it yourself later, you can go ahead and when you visit that link that you saved, it's going to take you back to the advanced search page with those table IDs already filled in. So from here, you can just add in whatever geographies you need. Another question about seeing duplicate entries in the profile for the metro area. In this question, I see Washington metro area appear 2 times in the geography filter. Are those always identical duplicates? Is there any difference in data depending on which one I select? Another thing I just want to pull up on screen here, just so you can see when I click metro area, micro area, you will see repeating labels. If the label is this exact same, it does not matter which one you click on. You will get data over time across all available years. If you see different labels, for example, the city of Phoenix has changed the name of its metro area over time. So I type in Phoenix, I see several different labels, and I don't know which one to click on. You can go ahead and click them all. And then when you run your search and pull up your tables and switch between the different vintages of the American Community Survey, right now I'm in 2012 looking at Phoenix, Mesa, Glendale. If I go, notice I have all of the available years from 2010 to 2019. And because I selected all of the applicable geographies, it automatically knows which one to pull from. You don't need to worry about clicking them all if the title of the geography is exactly the same. Will a spyglass be added for the surveys as more data sets are added? That's a great feedback item for us. So that is a question referring to the panel. When you click on surveys, some of our panels have spyglasses in the upper right, some of them do not. I'm not aware of any plans at the moment to add a spyglass. We get more feedback right now about wanting to kind of have more generic categories that folks can drill into. For instance, clicking surveys and having just one line for American Community Survey as a generic option, and then maybe being able to drill into these detailed options rather than having one long list. We have certainly got a lot of feedback that the list is long, it's a lot to read through. If you're trying to get to where you want to go, even though there's not a spyglass, one option you have is to press Control F. And you can go ahead and type in data profiles as an example, and then just press enter to tab through the additional options. All right, so let's go on to our next examples here. I'm going to look at address lookup and mapping in particular. We do not have the ability to search by address on our site, but I'm going to show you how you can find geographies associated with a particular address in the Census Bureau's geocoder. And then I'm going to show you how you can create a map. We're just going to look at percent without health insurance across all counties in Maryland. The best way to get to the Census geocoder is probably just to Google Census geocoder. I'll also share this link in the chat in just a moment. When you get here, you'll want to click on the first, in the second section that says find geographies using option address. So I'm actually going to grab that exact link to share with you all, so you don't have to worry about doing that step. And then you'll just simply type in the address that you're looking for, 4231 Suitland Road, Hillcrest Heights, Maryland, 20746. Now, in this time of year in particular, you'll want to make sure that you click into the vintage and choose the drop-down menu that you're interested in. So right now it's going to give you current. That is the latest geographies for the 2020 census, but we don't actually have the 2020 census data or the American Community Survey data tabulated against those 2020 census boundaries just yet. So you'll want to make sure to click into the drop-down for vintage and choose. Ultimately, if you were to go to data.census.gov and find, for instance, the statistics that this address's census tract belongs to, and you want the 2019 ACS data, you'll want to click 2019. Then you'll go ahead and click Find. And we'll give it just a moment to run. You'll kind of verify the address that you input, and you'll want to pay attention to the address that it matched. Does the matching address make sense with what you typed in, or did it maybe find something that you wouldn't expect? In this case, it looks like a true match. So then I can scroll through, and the way you read this is to just look at the different headings: census block, state, county, and census tract. And then within a particular section, what you'll just want to pay attention to with all of this information that probably geographers would love, want, and need, what most people would be interested in is simply the name. So we can see that this address falls within census tract 8024.05. Now moving on to our mapping example, which is going to be totally unrelated to the search by address. I'm just going to map percent without health insurance, all counties in Maryland. We'll use the advanced search. And it's already stored from the last time I clicked county, I clicked Maryland, and I just checked the box for this search for all counties in Maryland. Then I'll choose topics, health, and check the box for health insurance. When I'm happy with my selection, I will click search in the lower right. Now you may think you would want to drill right into maps because we want to create a map, but actually you'll want to kind of familiarize yourself with the table and find which one contains the exact data point that you want to map and what that table looks like. Having that information ahead of time is going to make your map creating process much smoother. Looking at my table results, I can see some table titles for public health insurance. I just want overall health insurance, so I have to scroll a little bit in this case to get to something that looks like it may have what I need: selected characteristics of health insurance coverage in the United States, S2701. I can see right off the bat, there is the first column for the total population in Maryland, the total number of people with health insurance, the corresponding percent with health insurance in the third column, fourth column for total uninsured, and fifth column for percent uninsured. The very first row gives me these numbers for the total population, and if I wanted to slice and dice these different categories in my columns across different age, sex, or race groups, I can kind of scroll through the table. But what I want to map out is this 4.8% uninsured, but I want this mapped out for all of the geographies I selected. So with that information, we'll click on Maps in the upper left. It may zoom you into your selected area automatically, or you may need to manually zoom and scroll to the area you selected. In this case, I can see it's taken me to Maryland, but it does always put you in the selection map by default. So you may need to click once again into the table title that you're interested in, S2701. And it looks like it didn't quite load up correctly on screen. So if you're noticing any bugs with something not loading correctly, you'll just want to click between things and refresh it. So I clicked on the table title underneath and back again. We do have some map updates that will be coming live in the next month or so. So hopefully that issue should be resolved. Here I've clicked and I'm seeing, once I click in the table title and it's successfully loaded, you'll see it's created a map with some colors on your table. So by default, it is mapping out the very first estimate from our table in the very first column. So the total civilian non-institutionalized population. You can click on the data variable drop-down menu. And here we see we have a set of labels that begins with total that corresponds to the first column in our table. Another set of labels for insured, corresponding to the second column, And you'll notice that there are 5 sets of labels, each corresponding to the 5 columns that we saw on our table. We wanted percent uninsured, and then within each set of labels, it follows the same order that the rows were in. So we wanted the first line in percent uninsured. It's also the first available option in the data variable dropdown, percent uninsured, non-institutionalized population estimate. And now we have our map. You can see in the lower left, based on the legend, we're clearly getting values for percent, and you can click and see the values on the map. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over for you all to work through some examples here. First, we want to make sure that we're pulling the correct census tract. So we'll give you all an opportunity to use the address lookup. So just take about 1 minute to walk through this example. I'm sharing the link to, let me share it with everyone. In the chat, the link to the geocoder, and find the census tract associated with 777 North Capitol Street, Northeast Washington, DC 20002. Okay, so walking through that example, hopefully, I'm just going to show it on screen here actually, rather than going to the site. What you would have wanted to do was visit the link I gave that would have already clicked you into the address tab in Geocoder that you need. You would have typed in the address. If you're not quite getting the match you expect, just check for abbreviations, maybe abbreviate things or spell things out. Just making some tweaks there. We put in the address, city, state, zip code, and then we're going to want to access the 2019 American Community Survey data. So I changed the vintage to 2019 ACS simply because there are no statistics that we'll be able to pull from the current vintage. So once you do that step and you click to run that search, you would have scrolled to the census tract section and see that the census tract for 2019 ACS is census tract 106. For the 2020, I believe it's 106.03. So knowing that this address falls within census tract 106, go ahead and pull up the percent of people living in poverty in Census Tract 106 in Washington, DC, using the ACS 5-year data profiles. And just do the first bullet point under part 2. I'm going to shorten this just in the interest of time and delete that. And once you've done that exercise, then go ahead and map out percent poverty across all tracts in Washington, DC. So the task at hand for part 2, what is percent poverty in Census Tract 106? In part 3, how can we map this out for all census tracts in DC? We'll give you all about 6 minutes and then we'll reconvene. Okay, so in about 6 minutes, we'll go ahead and work through this as a group, even if you haven't quite gotten through the entire exercise. First, we were going to look at using the ACS 5-year data profiles. What is the percent of people in poverty in Census Tract 106? So let's go ahead and navigate back to the site using the advanced search. We'll go ahead and click on geography. We'll look for tract. We'll follow the prompts, choosing District of Columbia. And we don't want all tracts, so we'll click DC again. And then we'll look for Census Tract 106. Check the box. It's at the bottom of our screen as a selected filter. We wanted to pull this from the ACS 5-year data profile, so we'll click on Surveys, ACS 5-year estimates, data profiles, and then we'll choose poverty. Click Topics, Income and Poverty, Poverty, and the checkbox for poverty. Again, there may be a variety of options you could have chosen to get where you wanted to go in the end. But that's what I'm going to say is most relevant and my best guess. I'll go ahead and run the search by clicking Search at the bottom, Tables in the upper left, and we see selected economic characteristics. In this particular table view, I'm just going to scroll through, look for the different sections. And I happen to know that poverty is towards the bottom of this table, but what you would do is just scroll through, read those labels. The sections are most indented to the left. They're also all in capital letters. So we can see percentage of families and people whose income in the past 12 months is below the poverty level. And then go ahead and drag that back a little bit more and then view different ways of slicing and dicing poverty. I see a measure for all people. And as I scroll through the right, I can see for this particular census tract, 11.4% of people live in poverty. If you do want to share a link to this table, you can copy the URL from the address bar. And when you access it later, will take you directly back to that table with your selected geography. We also showed earlier how you could copy the URL on the advanced search page to save search criteria. The next step was to go ahead and map out percent poverty across all census tracts in DC. Right now, I have selected just a single tract in Washington, DC. There are a variety of ways you can go about changing your geography selection. One option when you're on the table or maps results page is to click the filter button on the left-hand side and go ahead and add in the geography selection you want. So we click geography, it kind of remembers what we've clicked on last for tract, DC. And in this case, we actually want all tracts in DC. So I'll go ahead and select that checkbox, all census tracts within District of Columbia. To get out of this particular view, just look for the chevron in the upper right that says Done. And now we have the table view for data profile 3 for all tracts. I can kind of scroll across the right and see the data. When you're ready to go ahead and create the map, you can click on Maps in the upper left. It always takes you to the selection map by default when you access the maps through this navigation pathway. So you want to make sure to click again on the table title, Selected Economic Characteristics, DP03. In this case, it's zoomed us into areas that we did not select in Kansas. So it's just kind of zooming into the middle of the map. We're working on the default for the maps to zoom you into your selected area. So we'll just kind of manually zoom out, scroll over to DC, and then zoom back in. Getting to this part of the map's pretty straightforward. The final step is to select the data variable drop-down menu. So we'll click data variable where it says employment status. It has in capital letters the different sections of the table. I know I had to scroll to the bottom to get to the the poverty section of the table. So I see percentage in families whose income in the past 12 months is below the poverty level. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can see the full label here. And what I was looking at was all people, not all families. So I see all people estimate and all people percent. I want the percent. So I'll choose percentage of families and people whose income in the past 12 months is below the poverty level, all people percent. And now we have our map updated. So I can see the census tracts with the darkest shade of blue have the highest percentage of people living in poverty. For example, the census tract 74.01, 68.6% of the population in poverty. We can also zoom in on these maps, and the farther you zoom in, you'll start to see street shown on the map as well as the label for the street. So it kind of helps you make sense of these smaller level geographies if you're not familiar with them already. And just going back here to our slides. Actually, I just want to take a moment to look at the chat just to see if anything's come in lately. So far, not seeing anything. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our next example here. For this, I'm actually just going to do the demonstration part. You guys will have the slides in case you want to walk through this on your own. How can we download, export, and print? So I'm going to work off of data profile 3, showing this download for all tracks in DC. We already have that data table pulled up here. So what you'll want to do is just get back to the table view. Here I'll click on tables, selected economic characteristics. There's a couple different ways you can go about downloading. On the left-hand side here, when you see the download link on the table results page, and click download, this option will actually let you click on multiple table IDs. So if I had a search that had more than one table result, I could click as many table IDs as I wanted. Once I checked all the boxes for the tables that I needed, you'll go ahead and make sure to scroll back up to the top where it says download selected. This is probably a little bit more complex way to go about downloading rather than from the customized table view, but it is the option that allows you to choose multiple tables at a time. You'll also be able to see that you can choose multiple vintages over time. So you check the available years that you're interested in, you click on download, and the progress bar will load up to 100%. Anything that says download on the site, that's going to give you output that is machine readable. So if you wanted to sort, map, or manipulate the information, this is going to be a good file format for you. Here, I'm going to click that zip in the lower left of my browser, and it's going to open up 3 sets of files for each vintage of this table. So the one that you want to open up are the ones that say data with overlays in the naming convention. I can see the 2017 DP03 is the first one. So I'm just going to double click and open up that file format. This gives you something that looks nothing like we saw on screen. We have each geography as its own row. And as we follow across, all of the estimates we saw on the nice table display are here without any special formatting or indentation. The other ways that you can go about looking at this data off of the site, I'm just going to go ahead and use the same example shown here. When you click on Customize Table, here was that other download button I was referencing that allows you to download a single table across years. You'll also notice right next to it is Excel. So we've actually done quite a bit of enhancements to the export output. You'll click Excel, Generally, you'll want the Excel format, so I'm going to choose Export to Excel. And then it starts exporting the file. It's here in the lower left. So once I open it up, you'll notice that we actually have two tabs. So first you have the information tab. This gives you the census logo, the table title, all of the source information, your vintage, your table ID. It even has a link to get you back to that exact table, as well as your table notes. And then we've separated the data into spreadsheet number 2. The reason is just to view it easier, and it also has been optimized as best as possible in Excel for printing in this format. So if you wanted to print this table, exporting it and printing it from Excel is going to be your best option. Some other updates we've done is just enhancing the look of the export. When we showed you export functionality last year, it didn't come with all of these indentations shown in a single column. It actually kind of made separate columns for each indentation. So it was very difficult to read this exported file information. You can see it's quite similar to what you see on screen. Any customizations you make on screen, if you hide columns, if you take away the margin of error, that's all reflected in the exported file format. And then the last file format or the last way you can output is to print it. When you print it on our site, it does kind of encourage you to export to Excel. And the reason for that is we still have a long ways to go with our print functionality. It will only print the first page of data, which is the notice that you're seeing here. Looks like it's running a little slow to pull up this print preview on my computer, but eventually it would pull up and just show you that it gives you the first page of table data, and all of the table notes would print as well. Since it's taking a while to load up, I'm just going to proceed on. This will be provided to you if you want to practice some of this on your own. We're not going to take time to do it today, just so I can go through a little bit of the race information, and I want to leave some time for questions as well. So what I'm going to show here are the advanced search filters. There are different ways of accessing race and ethnicity data. When you go through your filters to pull up data for a particular group, you will see topics, race and ethnicity. Asian is what I've clicked into, and then you'll see codes at the checkboxes at the top that do not have codes, something that says Asian. That gives you information from the standard tables that are annually released from the American Community Survey, Summary File 1, and Redistricting from the Decennial Census are examples of standard tables. Generally speaking, you want to use those options without codes when you want data for basic high-level race categories: Asian, white, Black or African American, Hispanic or Latino, as some examples. When you want information for detailed race groups, you'll want to select the filters that have codes with them. This screenshot is just showing us drilling into a little bit more detail for detailed Asian alone, and then checking the box for 022 Japanese alone. So the reason that we're using an option that has a code is because we want data for detailed groups, in particular when you want characteristics of these groups. And for the purposes of time, I'm just going to go through this example, and I'll leave the exercise as a kind of take home if you'd like to work through that on your own. It also has step-by-step instructions in the slide deck, so you can kind of work through the exercise on your own and see what the answers are and how you get to the answers. I'm just going to show really quickly how you could look at Hispanic or Latino overall in the US and characteristics of a detailed group such as Mexican. So basically what we saw on the slide, but on the live site here, clicking advanced search, And we're just looking at data for the US. So I'm going to click under topics, race and ethnicity. We want to know how many Hispanic or Latino people live in the United States. So I'll click on Hispanic or Latino. And we see options for Hispanic or Latino at the top. That's what I want to check. I don't want to drill into any of these options with codes because I want information for a high-level ethnic category. So we check the box. It's been added to the screen as a selected filter. Then I'll go ahead and click search in the lower right and tables in the upper left. See a few different options to choose from. And the second table title looks promising. So when I click Hispanic or Latino, I can see in the United States, the third line shows a little over 60 million Hispanic or Latino people that live in the United States. And I can look at totals for some of those detailed groups. So when you do want totals of detailed population groups, you can click the higher level, more broad category that doesn't have a checkbox to get those totals. For instance, if I wanted to know the total number of Mexicans, I could check that Hispanic or Latino box and get that information through this table. But if you wanted anything else for the Mexican population, such as employment status, income, educational attainment, health insurance, you'll want to go about accessing those iterated tables using the filters with codes. So I'm going to click the US Census logo in the upper left. We're going to look at employment status for the Mexican population in the United States. Under topics, race and ethnicity, Hispanic or Latino. Again, it's just remembering the most recent clicks I've made. I can see detailed Hispanic or Latino. And I get more detailed options to choose from. So you just drill into the level of detail that you're interested in. You look for checkbox as a final selection. Here I see something relevant, 401 Mexican. To the bottom of my screen as a selected filter. And then if I wanted to, I could go ahead and drill into employment and labor force status. Once I have my topic and population group, go ahead and click search in the lower right and tables in the upper left. And right here at the top, we can see selected population profile. This is essentially very similar to all four data profiles merged into one table. It does have a little bit more high-level information, but it does cover the topics in those profiles, and you can scroll through this long table to get to employment status. So here I see the employment status section, and in labor force 68.4%. At the top is where you see your population group. So when you mark the filters with codes, the way that you will see those population groups in your data tables is an individual column for each population group that you chose. And then, of course, we have these exercises. I will leave this with the slide deck in case you all want to run through them on your own to get a little bit more practice with these. But we did want to run through some last minute information before we open it up again for questions. What data are available? We talked about this earlier, but just want to hit home on the right-hand side are some other popular types of data from the Census Bureau that folks ask us for that are not on data.census.gov, as well as some links to help you access information through other sources like web pages, API, and FTP sites. We actually selected our survey quite a bit in this training by clicking the filter surveys. Again, it's a very detailed, it's a long list. We showed you how you can press Control F on the page. If you're not sure where to start, these are some popular types of tables that folks use. Another common question we get, how do I get population density? We actually don't have the tables that contained population density. You can calculate population density on your own using the underlying source tables. So you would just pull up the total population data tables, depending if you wanted decennial census, ACS, or population estimates program. That information you would get on our site, download the data, and then you would be able to get the land area information through the geography gazetteer files, looking for the column that says A land for square meters or A land underscore square miles, depending on how you wanted to calculate your density. And that would be how you would be able to get that information now. Another common question, why are my geographies and downloads not in order? Here you can see I've pulled up a particular data table for all states, but it's not in alphabetical order. It starts with Colorado and jumps to Indiana. You will see this also in the data download. In addition, when you download the data, what you see in column C may not be the first line of the data table. Here we're actually looking at the 17th row of the data table in the column C for the total female population aged 19 to 64 years with public health insurance coverage. You would probably expect column C to be the total from the first line of the table. Do know that even though this information is not sorted in the display or the download, it is all in the file. As long as you selected those geographies and chose the 5-year estimates, if applicable, you can manually sort this information, and we're working towards adding additional sort functionality on the site in the future. Another common question, why does my table not show my geography, or why can't I select it? You'll want to click that product drop-down menu and choose the ACS 5-year estimates. That's the most common reason for this issue. How do I access data for collections of zip code tabulation areas in bulk? We added new checkboxes that allow you to access all ZICTAs in a state or the United States pretty intuitively from the American Community Survey. That works for the 2019 ACS. For the 2010 census, you'll want to go through summary level 871. And we do have some FAQs that walk through these process and step-by-step details, and also explain alternative ways to access this information. For example, the checkboxes for all ZICTAs in a state don't work with some of the earlier vintages of the American Community Survey, but there is workaround detailed in the FAQ, and we are working towards getting those new options programmed so that they would be able to pull the data historically over time as well. How do I get all census tracts in the US? Well, you can use the lower level geography collections. Here I've clicked on the links for all census tracts in Alabama, Alaska, Arizona for all of the states, and created a link. That link is accessible through this slide as well as the FAQ. So you would just simply click on the link. It would take you to the advanced search page, and you could type in your table ID or other search criteria. There's a similar issue for all block groups in a state where it works for current ACS data, but not historical data. However, just like for the census tract, you will be able to use the lower level county, all block groups in a county, collections of geographies in order to add up and get the information for your state. And the good news is we've already put that collection of links together for you as well. In case you're interested in accessing that, you can visit the FAQ here, click on the link for your state, and simply add in the table IDs that you need. How do I know which geographies are available? You can go ahead and click, either enter your search criteria. For example, if you were working with ACS 5-year detailed tables, and then once you've made that selection, you can click on the geography filter, turn on the toggle to show the summary level. Then you will notice that summary levels that are compatible with your data set are clickable, and Geographies summary levels that are incompatible are grayed out. And lastly, just walking through one slide of updates since last year's training. What have we done on the site since we presented to you all last year? We have more options to select collections of geographies. Again, we're working on getting some of those backwards compatible. We've integrated filter selections into the single search bar. So last year when you chose your geography through the advanced search and you typed in a table ID and then you went to change your table ID to something else, it would start your search over fresh and you'd lose your geography selection. You had to use special workarounds. We've integrated that so that doesn't happen anymore. There are new buttons to print and export your table. Last year, you would have had to use keyboard shortcuts in order to do those things. We showed you the new export format that's separated into two different sheets. It is indented and has fully qualified information and a link to get back to the table. We have options that allow you to select collections of population groups in a single click. We've done numerous performance improvements, defect resolution, some look and feel updates, and we are in the early stages of new search to power the pages section of data.census.gov. And we want to just go ahead and open it up for any additional questions that you all have here. I'm going to look in the chat and see if anything's come through. Not seeing anything that I haven't answered already, but wanted to give you all a moment to ask questions or put them in chat. As you maybe are thinking of any question that you may have, do keep in mind that we have additional resources specifically on data.census.gov. If you visit the link in the upper left, you'll be able to see recorded webinars, short videos. There's also a new section, and you can also get to this webpage just by clicking the help button under data.census.gov. One of the new resources that we've added are upcoming releases. So if you wanted to know when is the 2020 American Community Survey going to be released, you can go ahead and see some of that. I'm seeing one question in the chat. Could I only download columns that I'm interested in? Not if you use download, but if you customized your table display and exported it to Excel, that would reflect those customizations. That may or may not meet your needs depending on the ultimate output format that you're looking for. And we have received feedback requesting exactly what you were asking for the customizations to also carry over to download. Another great example of feedback that is helpful to email to us. Any other questions? I know we're getting close on time.
Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions, Tyson. Thank you for this presentation and training. It was very informative and very good, and great job on improving the website over the last year. It's definitely come a long ways. Appreciate it. Appreciate all your work.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate you all.